A few months ago, I had the opportunity to get the full lume variation of the Tool Watch Co. Chronograph. This was the new release version of this watch for them, and I really liked it. I really connected with it, and I found it was a watch that I kept coming back to wanting to wear over and over again. But I knew it was the new release, the new variation of a standard model that the company had on offer, and that made me think, what other variations did they have with this particular watch? Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. And yes, I'm talking about Tool Watch Co. again, and I am talking about them again because I really like that other watch that I had, their full lume variation of their chronograph. And it really made me want to understand and see what other variations of this particular watch they had on offer. And when I did go looking on their website, I saw that there was a more standard black version of the same watch, but then they had 3 rally editions, 2 with a silver dial, 1 with a black dial, and there was a silver dial with a blue accented second hand that really grabbed my attention. And it really grabbed my attention probably because I really like silver dials, but I also like blue, and blue and silver together seem to be something that grabs my attention, and it grabbed my attention enough that I then reached out to Tool Watch Co. again and said, could I possibly get this variation of this chronograph in so I can share it with you guys? And they said, yes, that would be great. They'd love for you to see another variation of this watch, which is why you would have seen that sponsored icon up there. They sent this one out to me again. I get to keep this one. I now get to experience this variation of this one. But this one, just like that full lume dial, does share a number of similarities, and that is also beginning with the price, because these watches are $395 US. They are powered by the VK64 Mecha Quartz. They have 30 meters of water resistance, and they all have the same set of dimensions because they do share the same case. The case of this one, like the others, is 38 millimeters. It has a height of 12.3 millimeters, a lug to lug of 46.2 millimeters, a lug width of 20, and only 66 grams on this rally style strap. A strap that, well, conforms very nicely to my wrist, and just like that full lume dial, it really sits down nicely onto my wrist. Now, I completely expected this watch to sit and feel on wrist the same as the other because they do share a lot, including that case, but the wearing experience has been different because of that different dial. And it was a dial that really stood out to me, and it wasn't just because it was a silver dial. I do particularly like silver dial watches. I've found that recently as I look at my own collection, I see that I seem to have a thing for that, but this particular silver dial, well, it looks rather special because it's not just silver, it almost looks like a steel silver with vertical lines etched into it, and this allows it to sparkle in the sunlight. But this watch, just like the other variations of it, all have a common sort of ethos to them. They are called Tool Watch Co. for a reason, because they are producing tool watch inspired watches that are tough, daily wear watches that are fully legible and that have functionality that can be used every single day. But this one, although it does feel like a tool watch, like an everyday watch, it has those details to it that I really like and that grab my attention and that hold my attention so that I want to wear this one, not just because I want to wear a nice functional daily watch, but something that I actually find intriguing and that holds me and draws me into the details, just like that silver dial. But it's not just that silver dial that grabs my attention. It certainly pops and certainly initially grabs my attention, but it is the way that it works with the other colors and the other features that are on this dial, and also beyond the dial through to the bezel, the case, and the strap. Because you can see there is a nice color combination of silver and black used throughout the watch, both from the strap, the case, the bezel, the dial, the hands, and the markings on the dial. Those hands, they are nice and black on the outside with a heap of lume inside. A heap of lume that when you do turn the lights out, that, well, it becomes equally as legible after dark as it is throughout the day. You'll see those little lume dots on the outer edges of that dial. It doesn't show up as much during the day, but it does show up when those lights are out. All the other markings on the dial are printed on in black, including the printing that creates those 2 sub-dials on the left and the right of the dial. The hands on those subdials are also in black, but you'll see that there is a nice little bit of pop of blue on that chronograph hand. Now the layout of these subdials is because this watch is powered by the VK64 Mecha Quartz movement, which is a really good, affordable, solid Mecha Quartz movement, which I think is a great choice. But it does leave you sort of having a couple of things on the dial that aren't always my go-to choices, and that is no movement, because that dial on the right of the dial is a 24-hour indicator. That subdial on the left-hand side of the dial is your minute counter, so it leaves you needing to activate and keep the chronograph moving in order to have some movement. And it doesn't move forever, it goes up to a certain time frame, and then that second hand or that chronograph hand will stop. But I have researched and looked into other variations of Mecha Quartz movements, and I think there is a reason why so many companies are choosing this specific one. Even though there is no movement on the dial, I think it is a great choice because the other variations of what is available may not look visually as good as this one. The dial layouts don't seem to work as well on certain designs, and this one, having those two subdials on the left and the right, it is very pleasing to the eye. It just leaves you without that movement. So I too tend to activate the chronograph a reasonable amount whilst wearing this one, even though it doesn't continue throughout the day ticking along, but that's okay. I can then play with the watch and I enjoy having that interaction with it. Now that dial is covered by well, I'm going to say it's a boxed mineral crystal. There's a little bit of a doming to it as well. Maybe it's a little bit of a transition between both of those two, but it is mineral, and I have no issues with mineral crystal. I think sometimes when we are looking at affordable watches, we start thinking about we wanting these specifications and we want sapphire crystals, but well, we should be aware that not all sapphire crystals are the same, and a cheap sapphire crystal versus an expensive sapphire crystal are not the same. And I've realized after having so many watches in my own collection and watching lots of videos about watches and reading about watches and learning about watches that I'd probably rather a solid piece of mineral crystal on an affordable watch rather than a cheap sapphire crystal on a watch. But that does lead into that solid black bezel, and I think it looks fantastic. And I think it looks fantastic because of the combinations of the colors, how the black bezel links in with the black strap and the black hands and the black elements on the dial, but then also working in with that little bit of blue and the rest of those silver elements on this watch. It is a tachymeter style bezel, not something that I'm planning on using, but I think it does give enough visual details that make it work really well. And as you probably expect from a tool watch, that this case, well, it's all brushed, but it has this nice curvature to it, both to the tops of the lugs and the side of the case, but also then how it does then sit down onto wrist. The pushers on the side seem to tuck down nicely into the case, which I do quite appreciate from a chronograph. There are some chronograph movements or watches that seem to stick out quite high from the case, and that's not a visual element that I particularly connect with, so I do appreciate having a chronograph watch where the chronograph pushers and buttons do sort of nestle into the case. This one does have a screwed down crown, which may then make you ask, why does this one have only 30 meters? Well, have a look on the website. They've listed a few things there. I'm not entirely sure it was the correct decision to make, but it is, I guess, their shared case that they're using amongst other watches. So rather than create an additional case, they're just using what they have, which then probably brings the prices down on these watches. But then as we turn this watch around, when I first saw this etching on the back, I thought, perfect, a Rally-styled etching on a Rally-inspired watch with that Rally-styled second hand, and of course Rally on the dial of this watch. But as I looked a little bit closer, it was a little bit different to what I initially thought it was or initially expected, because there is a racing driver on there. But the racing driver is a girl who has a crop top on, with her hair hanging over her right shoulder and a helmet on her head and a 80s or 90s style rally car zooming around her. I'm not sure if there's any specific reference to who this person is or if they just thought it was a cool image, but I guess it does work with the watch, and I quite appreciate having some details in that etching rather than have a sterile Caseback or just something relatively simple. The strap perfectly fits this design of watch. This is a racing style, rally style watch. So you want a rally or a racing style strap, and this sort of style strap really does fit in with that style, as well as I've mentioned a number of times already that I love that the black and black and black all work together. Black straps actually are not my normal go-to straps. Normally if I get a watch with a black strap, it is one of the first things that I do change about a watch. However, this one, it works. It fits the design, it fits the watch, and it's also very nicely well made, and it's nice and comfortable. It has a great set of hardware on there too that is both branded on the front and the back of it. And I guess it shouldn't be particularly unexpected, but this watch has left me with the same sorts of impressions as the full lume dial variation. Although they do look significantly different in my mind and I can wear them in different environments, it has the same sort of feel to it. I've connected with this watch as well. It is a watch that I'm sort of considering a slow burn. It's because I've liked it initially. I thought that looks cool, that looks nice, I like wearing this one. But it's a watch that I find that I just find myself circling back to, picking up and wanting to wear, because it just feels nice, it sort of suits me, and it's just a nice, quick and easy watch to put on in this sort of daily or tool type watch sort of wearing experience. So I think they've designed a watch that has some elements that really stand out without then taking away from the tool aspects of this watch. So I think they're doing some good work with these watches. It's nice to see that they're bringing out different variations as well, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they come out with next. Thanks for watching. Maybe watch the lume variation next, and then what other video I decide to put there next.